Years ago the heat was different, but the heat today is so intense and it seems to go right into your body.
Kathleen is 78 and, like the other residents of this care home in Bristol, she's struggling to get used to Britain's new extreme heat waves.
And I think England got to change. We've got to adapt to this weather because this is what we're going to be having now.
As temperatures soar, they're using ice baths and ice creams to keep the residents cool.
Oh, is that for me?
Yeah. It's hard enough getting the elderly to drink water at the best of times, but manager Sarah says even more so in this heat.
The challenge is getting them to drink enough because, you know, although the ones that have got more capacity will drink, the ones that have got diminished capacity, it's very difficult getting them to take on board any sort of fluids. That's why we normally turn to ice cream, because everybody likes ice cream.
83-year-old Pat says she knows what's to blame for the rising temperatures, even if others are not convinced.
According to Trump, it doesn't exist, this climate change. They should have listened to Charles years ago. Definitely. Forgive me, King Charles.
As temperatures soared over 36.4 degrees, the Met Office declared today the hottest June day on record, surpassing the previous peak reached only yesterday, as an unprecedented heat wave fuelled by climate change brings life-threatening conditions to the UK, which finds itself utterly ill-equipped to cope.
In extreme weather like this, there's a massive health impact. More vulnerable people are young children, babies, older people, people with chronic illnesses, pregnant people. So we've got to really take the extreme heat alerts really seriously.
After the London Ambulance Service yesterday recorded its highest ever number of life-threatening emergencies, today NHS doctors reported machines used to treat cancer had stopped working, with one doctor saying hospitals with no air conditioning were dangerously underprepared for the extreme heat. Schools too were struggling to cope, with more than 1,000 closed. Analysis exclusively shared with Channel 4 News of more than 19,000 schools in England found that nearly three-quarters were operating in temperatures above 30 degrees Celsius, while one teacher in northwest London recorded a temperature of over 37 degrees in their classroom.
London is one of the worst affected areas in the red zone, and we're not just talking air temperatures. Greenpeace used thermal imaging cameras to measure surface temperatures, including right here outside our studio in London, where the pavement measured 60 degrees. And up the road, a train platform in Islington was 62 degrees, and the granite slabs surrounding King's Cross Station measured 54 degrees. All examples of the extreme heat people are facing in urban centres, where concrete and tarmac and glass and, crucially, a lack of tree cover are turning streets into sweltering heat traps.
The Mayor of London visited a fire station in Islington today, where they showed him new equipment especially designed to fight urban fires like those that hit the capital 4 years ago.
So, Mayor, London hit 40 degrees in 2022. If that happens today, tomorrow, this week, next week, is London any better prepared to cope?
Well, I think this shows that climate change is real. Man-made climate change has consequences. One of the consequences of man-made climate change is more frequent and more extreme heat waves. And this should be a wake-up call for those who are delaying taking action on the climate emergency, those who are wrecking those of us taking action on the climate emergency, for us to, wake up, adapt, be resilient, mitigate, but also reduce our emissions, but also recognise the consequences of decades of inaction.
Decades of inaction that's left the UK dangerously vulnerable to extreme weather, with infrastructure, housing, schools, hospitals that's built for a climate that seemingly no longer exists.
Well, let's go to Anya Pop, who is in Stratford-upon-Avon. Anya, it looks pretty hot where you are. How are people coping? How are you coping?
Well, it is very hot, you're right there. It may be causing chaos, climate anxiety and discomfort elsewhere in the UK, but right here in Stratford-upon-Avon, we've heard none of that. People at this holiday park can't quite believe their luck. They're getting Mediterranean weather, but without the cost. One woman we spoke to today dubbed it Costa del Stratford. People have been basking in the sun all day long, and one difference between the people we heard earlier in the programme and here may well lie just over my shoulder, the River Avon. You can still see people at 7 p.m. enjoying the water. I mean, we can't wait to jump in ourselves. But yeah, it's reached 36 degrees here today, so it has been uncomfortably hot, but many people have been jumping into the water to cool down. We've been speaking to some of those today on the water. How are you finding it?
I'd like to moan about it because I'm British, right? So we can moan about it. I'll moan when it's too cold and moan when it's too hot. So, yeah, if you want me to moan about it, I'll moan about it. But I guess I'm one of these now, certainly at the time of life, a bit older, just take it in my stride and enjoy it because we really don't get that much of it.
It's a bit misering at times as women of a certain age. It can be a little bit too much, but I do enjoy it. I call it the Costa del Stratford. I'm happier and healthier in this nicer weather for me personally. I think not everybody can cope with it, but I think if you put things in place like cold drinks and, you know, dip in and out of the warm weather, and I love it. If it was like this all the time, I'd be very happy.
It is lovely to be in your shirt and shorts and so forth, rather than the big coat, because it doesn't seem that many weeks ago I had a big raincoat on and battening down the hatches, and the wind was blowing so high that it was pulling the boat all over the place.
How are you finding the heat wave?
I love it.
Horrible.
Without this water it'd be horrible, and it's a bit stuffy in the room, but other than that it's all right.
I've just put a pool upon our decking. So we've got
coming around yours next.
We've got a little plunge. We've got a little plunge pool on the decking. It's our home from home.
How's the heat wave for you?
Yeah, we're loving it. We can't complain really. Don't need to go on holiday. Don't need to waste the money on airplane tickets. Yeah, loving it.
Obviously there is climate change, there's some of that going on without a shadow of a doubt. But when you've been around as long as I have, and I was old enough in the summer of '76 to appreciate that weather as well. And of course, it's always changed, I think. So there's definitely an element of climate change. We can't deny that.
But of course, there are dangers and risks from open water swimming. Our boat driver today welcomed the recent warnings from authorities. He says he often sees people behaving carelessly in the water. Of course, there have been deaths in England and Wales and Scotland this heat wave and the last. But here, something surprising to show you. So it's a hot day, we're in England, and look down here. The tables are empty, and that's because many people are opting instead to drink their drinks inside. Fancy that, in the UK, where we usually lap up every speck of sunshine, but it's too hot to do that. Still 32 degrees here.
Anya, thanks very much indeed there. Anya in Stratford-upon-Avon. Well, extreme temperatures have swept through large parts of Western Europe as well, with Paris soaring to more than 40 degrees Celsius. French police have just imposed a ban on drinking alcohol in public from midday tomorrow. The UN said that the savage heat wave showed that the climate crisis looked like in practice. Warning, it's just getting started. The terror of the rising sun, where getting hosed down in public is now the definition of luxury, in a heat map of Europe filled with menacing red. Overnight, France experienced its warmest nighttime temperatures since they began measuring in 1947. Sunrise and daytime in France brought more sweltering heat as temperatures exceeded 40 degrees centigrade. So high, they triggered the shutdown of 2 nuclear reactors as a precaution over rising river temperatures. In Italy, the government has announced the highest red alert for 17 cities on Thursday. 5 deaths this week have been attributed to heat exposure. And in Spain, record temperatures of 45 degrees were reported on Monday. While there is some let-up from that record, it's not much. Monitoring bodies in Spain count 213 fatalities between Sunday and Wednesday that could be heat-related. A recent report from the Barcelona Institute of Global Health points to a grim new reality for wealthy nations. The heat affects richer countries more than the cold, and it's something that we'll have to get used to.
Heat can be a bigger killer than colds, depending on which country you're talking about. Unfortunately, temperatures are increasing, and particularly the Mediterranean area is warming up quicker than other areas, and perhaps this new heat is the new normal, and if we don't protect ourselves, if we don't adapt very well to the heat, then we get more deaths as a result as well. So that's why it's very important to take the right climate and adaptation measures to reduce the risk, in particular for vulnerable populations.
Concern for heat is spreading eastwards. In Germany, the authorities issued warnings against a dip to cool off after 3 men died in the Rhine in Cologne. While farmers are also having to deal with the new realities.
These days, it's terrifying how quickly the wheat changes colour towards light and white. And just a week ago, it was a succulent green. Day to day, you can see the wheat change colour, which is a sign that it is rotting.
The next few days will be unrelenting for Europe as the meteorological maps move from deep red to deep purple.
But I think to the medium and longer term, we really need to think about the infrastructure that we have. In particular in cities, what we see, the city centre is normally 4 or 5 degrees hotter than surrounding areas. In a city like Barcelona, it's very difficult. You feel the heat. We live in an area where it's warming up faster than other regions in the world. And we don't have, for example, a lot of green space. More green space, cool cities. So that's what we're looking for.
For those who can still think, here's a question. Can Europe cope with life at 40 or well over? And is this the new abnormal? Well, Camilla Bourne is the CEO of Electrify Britain and a former advisor to the COP26 president, Alok Sharma. She joins me now in the air-conditioned studio.
Yeah, thank goodness.
What a relief, exactly. I mean, cities like London or Liverpool or Manchester or Leeds are just not equipped to deal with this kind of heat, are they?
No, we're not used to living in a world like this, and it's really a message to us that we need to wake up and think about a more modern infrastructure that allows us to live in this modern world. We're not there yet, and it's definitely really hot today.
But we're all living in these brick houses that become ovens on days like this, on nights like this. What can we do about that?
So I think one thing we are going to have to think about is the role that air conditioning can play, particularly for the most vulnerable populations. So, you know, it showed earlier about the care homes. They're definitely a place we need to think about. Nurseries, schools, hospitals. This is the world we're living in now. We need to think about how we modernise it, we upgrade it, we make it more resilient, we make it electric, we make it digital. Britain deserves better infrastructure, and we've got to head in this direction.
And putting aircon in everywhere, how expensive is that? You know, are there cheap and efficient ways of doing so?
Well, it's an electric technology, so electric technologies are way more efficient than technologies that run on oil and gas. So absolutely we can do that. The other thing is an air-to-air heat pump allows you to both heat and cool, so that can be a really practical thing to install in a different place. But yeah, we have to think about this. This is going to cost us money to live in this new world, and we are going to have to put those investments in place.
But, you know, putting in air conditioning will require a lot more energy. AI requires a lot more energy for these massive data centers. I mean, there's a huge demand for energy, and yet there's, you know, political resistance increasingly to finding it in, you know, renewable ways.
Well, thankfully, you could argue in this country we've built a huge amount of clean power, which is fantastic, but we've actually seen the demand for energy decline. And actually, if we do increase the use of electricity, then we can spread those costs and bring down the bills. So in some ways, actually moving to a more electric system can help us be more resilient. It can help us cope with the cold, it can help us cope with the heat, and it can also bring down bills. So we've got to head in that direction.
So we're not going to be in a doom loop on this one?
We don't want to be in a doom loop, absolutely not. We want to have that clean power, but I think it is really important that we then switch that to focusing on how do we use that clean power to benefit people's lives. And in moments like this, when it is just too hot and people are vulnerable, we do need to think about things like air conditioning. Of course, there are other things that we can do. You know, everyone's been desperately closing their curtains, closing their windows.
Practical advice. I mean, if you go to Southern Europe, that's what everyone does in the summer, as a matter of course.
Absolutely, and it's a funny thing to think about. You think, closing the window, is that what I really need to do? But I'd certainly advise
closing the curtains, closing the shutters.
Absolutely, that's what we need to be doing.
But what about infrastructure like rail lines that overheat and then suddenly the train services all collapse? I mean, that's tricky to fix as well, isn't it? How does one fix it?
Yeah, very good question. And, you know, we have old infrastructure in this country because we really progressed early. And there is a time coming now where we do have to think about replacing that infrastructure. we can think really about the future in that context. So we can bring in those electric trains with that upgraded track that actually doesn't buckle in the heat. There's plenty of countries around the world who have track that doesn't buckle, but we never thought we'd get there. But now we live with climate change, we have to make different choices.
You were working with Alok Sharma. He was the president of COP26, which achieved quite a lot. And, he was very emotional about the achievement at the time. I remember well, I was there. But how far have we got since then when it comes to dealing with climate change? Because politically, the winds are going in the opposite direction, aren't they?
Yeah, and you could perhaps argue that the winds are going in that direction because people have been winning, and that becomes a threat. So
really? Or is it because you can score points by being anti-net zero?
I think it's a little bit of both. One is that you're winning, and so if you're winning, then you are turning your back on oil and gas. You are not running your car on petrol anymore, and that's really expensive. Why would you want to do that? Have an electric car. And at the same time, it's a new future. And so pick on the new future, say, oh, no, that doesn't work for people.
And yet you've got, drill, baby, drill galore, thanks to President Trump in the United States. And, of course, the debate in this country whether we should start drilling again for oil in the North Sea. Which,
to me, is a very academic discussion. The North Sea is 90% depleted. Who's going to want to put their money in that investment? I don't think.
You don't think Andy Burnham will go in that direction?
He might do, but I'd be really interested to see if the investors actually turn up and put the money in there. Because really what we have to focus on is how we are using the energy that we can grow at home, i.e. the electricity. It's much better to have an electric car, not just for climate reasons, but it's just a nicer car. They're the modern ones.
The Tories have just won a by-election in Aberdeen because of their stance, against net zero or limiting that, and getting back to drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea.
I think we do have to think about the fact that these changes have real consequences, just like the heat is really affecting us today. If you are turning off doing oil and gas, you will be moving away from those kind of jobs. So we do have to think about how do we build an economy that allows us to build this infrastructure that protects us in this new world and provides the jobs in doing so.
Camilla Bourne, thank you for coming in on a very hot day.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.